Why do the purest hearts bleed the most in a world that seems so cruel? I'm not just asking, I'm tearing open a wound we've all felt, a question that's haunted humanity since the dawn of time. Why do bad things happen to good people? As a humble advocate of the Buddhist teachings, I've walked this earth for decades, seen the tears of the kindest souls, and I'm here to share a truth that might just stitch up that aching hole in your chest. Stick with me because this isn't just philosophy, it's a lifeline. Now let's dig deeper. Do you ever look around and think the universe has singled you out for pain? That somehow your goodness is a magnet for misery? I've sat with folks just like you, Western seekers, Europeans and Americans drawn to the Buddhist path, sipping coffee in cozy cafes or meditating in quiet retreats from New York to London, and I've heard the same raw confession. I've done right by everyone, so why am I drowning in loss? Here's the first crack of light. You're not alone. Suffering isn't your personal curse. It's the thread that ties every human heart together. The Buddha didn't sugarcoat this. He called it Dukkha, the inescapable ache of life. Whether it's a shattered relationship, a job snatched away, or a loved one gone too soon, pain doesn't check your moral resume. I remember a dear friend, Anna, a nurse from Chicago, who spent her life healing others only to lose her own son to a sudden illness. She cried to me, "I've saved lives, why couldn't I save his?" It's a dagger to the soul, but the Buddha's wisdom whispers, this isn't punishment. It's the nature of existence. Over 2,500 years ago, under the Bodhi tree, Siddhartha Gautama saw that every being, rich or poor, saint or sinner, walks this jagged path. Studies even echo this ancient truth. A 2021 survey by the Pew Research Center found that 68% of Americans, regardless of faith, report feeling unfairly burdened by suffering at some point. So let's peel back the layers. How do we make sense of this shared ache? How do we stand tall when life keeps swinging? Let's ground this in the Buddha's core insight, the foundation of his teaching, the Four Noble Truths. First, there is suffering, dukkha. It's not just physical pain, it's the gnawing anxiety of a looming deadline, the hollow ache of loneliness on a rainy night, the gut punch of watching dreams crumble. Picture a young man, Mark, from a small town in England, who I met at a meditation retreat. He'd built a life of quiet virtue, volunteered at shelters, cared for his aging parents. Yet his business collapsed during the pandemic, leaving him penniless at 35. "I played by the rules," he told me, his voice cracking over a cup of tea, "but I'm still broken. I nodded because I've seen this story 1,000 times. The Buddha's first noble truth isn't here to depress us. It's a mirror. It says, look, this is real for everyone. The second truth points to the cause, attachment and craving. Mark clung to the idea that hard work guarantees success, just as we cling to health, love, or stability thinking they're permanent. But life is impermanent, Anicca. That business wasn't Mark's forever. Neither is your job, your home, or even this breath. The third truth offers hope. Suffering can end. By letting go of that desperate grip, we find peace. And the fourth? It's the path, the Eightfold Path of right understanding, speech, action, and more. I walked Mark through this, sitting cross-legged on a chilly retreat floor, explaining how his pain wasn't a personal failing but a universal tide. He started small, meditating on impermanence, speaking kinder to himself, and over months I saw his shoulders lift. He didn't get his business back, but he found something better: acceptance. This isn't abstract fluff. A 2019 study from Harvard Medical School showed mindfulness practices rooted in Buddhist principles reduced stress by 30% in participants facing chronic hardship. And historically, look at the Buddha's own life. He was a prince, had it all, yet suffering found him too. His father's palace couldn't shield him from seeing sickness, old age, and death on the streets of ancient India. He didn't run from it, he faced it. So, when I tell you suffering is universal, I'm not preaching from a mountaintop. I'm sitting with you in the mud, pointing to a way out. Think of the last time life knocked you down. Was it a betrayal? A diagnosis? Hold that moment. Now realize, millions felt that same sting today. In Buddhist sanghas across Europe and America, from Berlin to San Francisco, I've watched people share these stories, divorce, grief, failure, and find solace in knowing they're not outliers. The Buddhist teaching isn't a quick fix, it's a slow burn of truth. Suffering isn't about, why me? It's about, why not me? Because no one escapes. So, how do we shift from drowning in pain to swimming through it? Here's a twist that might jolt you awake. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was also the best? I'm not being cruel, stay with me. There's a story from the Buddha's time that flipped my own understanding, and I've shared it with countless seekers in Western Dharma circles, from rainy Scottish highlands to sunny California coasts. It's about a woman named Kisa Gotami, a mother whose baby died. Her grief was a wildfire. She clutched the tiny body, wandering her village, begging for a cure. When she reached the Buddha, desperate and wild-eyed, he didn't offer false hope. He said, "Bring me a mustard seed from a house untouched by death." Simple, right? She knocked on every door, her sandals slapping against dusty paths, her voice hoarse from pleading. But every family had a story, a father gone, a sister lost, a child taken. Hours turned to days, and the weight of her task crushed her illusion. Death spares no one. She returned empty-handed, not with seeds but with a shattered heart. And yet, something new bloomed. She buried her child, thanked the Buddha, and joined his sangha, finding peace in the shared human ache. I felt this lesson echo in my own bones. Years ago in my 60s, I lost my closest companion to cancer. I raged, I wept, why him, why now? But sitting in meditation, recalling Kisa's journey, I saw my pain wasn't unique. It was my teacher. It forced me to face impermanence head-on, to cherish every fleeting moment with those still here. When I share this in retreats, I see nods, people from all walks, a lawyer from London, a teacher from Seattle, each carrying their own mustard seed story. So ask yourself, has your deepest pain ever taught you something unshakable? The Buddha's point isn't to wallow, it's to wake up. Suffering is the great equalizer, and realizing that can loosen its chokehold. Now let's hit the heart of this truth with everything I've got. Suffering isn't just universal, it's a forge. The Buddha didn't teach us to dodge pain. He taught us to walk through it, to let it shape us without breaking us. Let's unpack Kisa Gotami's story further, because it's not just a parable, it's a map. Imagine her, a frail figure in a tattered sari, baby limp in her arms, eyes hollow from sleepless nights. Her village in ancient India buzzed with life, merchants haggling, children laughing. But for her, it was a graveyard of hope. Door after door she heard the same refrain, "We've lost two." A grandmother wept over a son taken by fever. A young man spoke of a wife lost in childbirth. Each story was a brick in the wall of her realization. Death isn't personal. It's not a vendetta. It's the law of nature. When she returned to the Buddha, her grief wasn't gone, but her delusion was. She saw her pain as part of a vast web, not a solitary prison. I've witnessed this shift in real time. Take Sarah, a woman I counseled at a retreat in Oregon. She was in her 40s, a single mom who'd lost her job and her home in the 2008 financial crash. She sat with me, her hands trembling around a mug of herbal tea, saying, "I've been a good person, why am I being punished?" I walked her through the Buddhist teaching step by step. We meditated on impermanence, visualizing her losses as waves crashing and receding, not as permanent scars. I shared Kisa's story, and we discussed how her pain mirrored countless others. The 2008 crisis alone displaced over 10 million Americans per federal data. Over weeks, Sarah began journaling her attachments, her old identity as a successful provider, and slowly released them. She didn't get her house back, but she rebuilt her spirit, volunteering at a local shelter, finding purpose in helping others who'd lost everything too. The Buddha's Eightfold Path isn't a magic wand, it's a toolkit. Right understanding lets you see pain as universal, not personal. Right mindfulness keeps you grounded in the present, not spiraling into what-ifs. Right effort pushes you to cultivate compassion even for yourself. A 2020 study in the Journal of Buddhist Ethics found that practitioners who embraced these principles reported a 40% increase in emotional resilience during crises. I've seen this across continents. Whether it's a German engineer grieving a divorce or a Texan farmer battling drought, the Buddha's lens shifts pain from my curse to our condition. Look at history. Even during the Buddha's era, his followers faced plagues, wars, famines, yet they found peace not by escaping suffering but by understanding it. I recall a retreat in Ireland where a young woman, Fiona, shared losing her brother to addiction. She was angry, felt cheated by life. But through group discussions on Dukkha, through chanting and silent walks by the rugged coast, she began to see her loss as part of life's ebb and flow. She wrote him a letter of forgiveness, burned it under a gray sky, and told me, "I'm not over it, but I'm not under it anymore." That's the climax of this teaching. Suffering isn't your enemy. It's your mirror reflecting the truth of impermanence. It's your fire tempering your strength. So when life cuts deep, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What now?" Because that's where liberation begins. Alright, let's lighten this heavy load with a surprising angle. Suffering might just be the universe's tough love. Think of it as a cranky old coach who yells at you to run faster, not because he hates you but because he knows you've got more in you. I've got a little story from my own life to paint this picture. Back in my younger days, I was terrified of water, couldn't swim a stroke. One summer, my stubborn uncle tossed me into a lake, hollering, "Sink or swim, kid." I thrashed, choked, thought I'd drown, pure panic. But guess what? My arms started moving, my legs kicked, and I made it to shore, gasping but alive. That near drowning didn't just teach me to swim, it taught me I could face fear and come out stronger. The Buddhist take on suffering is kinda like that lake. Pain throws you in the deep end, and yeah, it stings like hell, but it's building muscles you didn't know you had. I've chuckled over this with folks at Dharma talks in places like Boston and Amsterdam, where we swap stories over tea and biscuits. One guy, Tom, a burly mechanic from Manchester, laughed as he told me how losing his shop to a fire forced him to start over. And in rebuilding, he discovered a knack for teaching apprentices, something he'd never have tried otherwise. That fire burned my livelihood, he grinned, but it lit up my purpose. The Buddha would nod at that. Suffering as a blessing in disguise isn't some fluffy nonsense. It's raw reality. Look at modern stats. A 2022 study by the American Psychological Association found that 76% of people who faced significant adversity reported post-traumatic growth, finding new meaning or strength. I've seen this in sanghas everywhere. A widow in California who turned her grief into advocacy for mental health, a veteran in Florida who channeled PTSD into art therapy. Life's punches aren't just blows. They're lessons in disguise, wrapped in barbed wire maybe, but lessons nonetheless. So, next time you're reeling from a hit, imagine the universe winking at you saying, "Bet you didn't see this strength coming, did ya?" It's not about loving the pain, it's about laughing at its audacity to think it can break you. I've sat with groups under starry skies, passing around homemade cookies, joking about how life's worst moments are like bad dates. Awful in the moment, but hilarious in hindsight. Suffering strips you bare, sure, but it also shows you what you're made of, pure, unbreakable grit. So here we are at the end of this winding road. The Buddhist truth cuts through the fog. Bad things don't happen to good people because of some cosmic spite. They happen because suffering is life's baseline for all of us. It's not personal, it's universal. Accepting that, facing it with a steady heart, builds a strength no storm can shake. I've walked this path for decades, seen it transform lives from Dublin to Denver, and I'm telling you, don't wish for a pain-free life. Wish for the grit to meet it head-on. If my words struck a chord, if they've helped you see your struggles in a new light, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support keeps me sharing these hard-earned lessons, and let's stay connected. Some content might not stick around forever due to platform quirks. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment about a tough moment in your life that ended up making you stronger. How did it shape you? Let's learn from each other.